is the Rangers Journal now.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Journal on a very pleasing Saturday evening as Rangers come out 3-0 winners over Dundee in the Premier Sports Cup. You've just got myself this evening. A lot of the lads from the Journal were indeed at the game, enjoying the return to Ibrox, and of course, being a Saturday night, a few have got other things and family events and whatnot's going on, so you've just got myself to put up with this evening. Welcome to those already in the chat. Dado, I'm seeing you already in there and commenting. Welcome this evening. Look forward to hearing what you guys thought of tonight's game. A lot of really interesting points to make, I think, from tonight, and most of them good as well, which was a pleasing affair. Of course, this evening, everyone was looking forward to the return to Ibrox. It, I think, looked and sounded resplendent, as it always does. A much improved evening from the nights we've had at Hampden. And that set this all out really early. The crowd, I thought, were in good voice, despite it not being a full stadium. And the team really started off, I thought, in a good vein, with a high-tempo approach to the match, which largely continued as well, which was good to see. But before we get all the way into it, we'll have a wee look at the starting lineup and how that looked. So the lineup for this evening was Butland in goal, Tavernier right back, Sutter and Proper at centre backs, Jeff Day at the left back. Then we had Barron and Sterling in the centre of midfield, Lawrence in that sort of 10 position, with Cherney and Barami playing on the wings. And then the familiar sight of Sadio Dessers playing up front for us. Do put your posts in the comments. What did you guys think when you saw that lineup come up? Were you happy? Were you looking for more changes? I know that there was a split in the chat with the guys from the Journal. Quite a few guys were hoping to see a few changes in this game to get some of the other players some minutes and to try some new things, and potentially also rest players ahead of our game, obviously coming up in Europe against Malmo. But for myself, I'd said on one of the previous pods during the week that I thought we would play a sort of a standard type of team, and I do think we kind of need to at the moment still, in order to get the players playing together, get their understanding building, and just kind of knit the team together. Obviously, there's the often mentioned quote that I've said myself a few times from Clement, that we will see the best Rangers come kind of October, November time. And I think if that's going to happen, then they need to be playing together and building themselves as a team. A lot of people were keen to see Egerman potentially start this game, and obviously he had a few cameo appearances recently where he impressed, and he did come on in today's game, which we'll touch on in due course. But Dessers led the line and did very well, I must say, in that game as well. Subs bench, I thought looked reasonably strong. We've had quite a few periods in recent memory where our subs bench has looked really poor, looked really weak. But I thought today, including Kelly, Cortez, Diomande, Dowell, Castanvirjo, Balogun, Egerman, Raskin, and McCausland, I think that's a pretty good bench there. There's the opportunity to change things up, like for like, and as well as make some adjustments and differences to positions as well. So it was good to see quite a few of those players get on later in the game. We did what we do not often do, which was manage to get the game kind of killed off at a reasonable time, which gave Clement the ability to put on quite a few of those players for minutes. And pretty much everyone who came on, I thought, acquitted themselves well as well. The only one that maybe didn't get as much time was Castanvirjo, but he did get a solid 10 minutes, so it was good to see him make his debut and obviously start to get some minutes in those legs. Okay, so we'll start getting into the actual match itself. Dado's starting us off in the comments there, saying the team looked fitter. I think that's a good observation. They did look like they were quite on the game this evening. They approached it really, as I say, quite aggressively from the off. The full-backs were incredibly high up the pitch, both Hefty and Tavernier found themselves quite advanced really early a lot of the time. Tavernier as well was also drifting in centrally quite a lot, both into the sort of the heart of the midfield, but also up in that sort of almost centre forward position that we used to see him in a lot in his sort of younger days at the club as well. So there's a lot of movement from players, which is good. I do think that some of the players we have now, particularly in those attacking zones, do give us the opportunity to have quite a fluid attack. So there is the chance there for that to develop. We didn't see a lot of it tonight, but I think there was a little bit. But one thing that I did think worked particularly well was Yeti and Barami on the left. We totally had the cut of Dundee on the left-hand side, especially in the first half. Their fullback really just couldn't handle Yeti at all. He was getting in a lot down that side, finding space, getting crosses, cutting in, cutting balls back. Barami maybe took a little bit of a secondary role to begin with. That maybe just be with him being newer. He kind of dropped back a little, covered the defensive lines while Jeffrey went ahead, but it was very effective. And ironically, I thought it looked a lot like kind of classic Rangers in terms of the last sort of say decade of play. And when we had kind of Barisic in his pomp, when you had a lot of say balls coming down that left side and then getting cut back into spaces into the box, you would find Barisic was used to do that as the sort of opposition to his floated crosses. And you would often have him finding obviously Tavernier in the back post or in that kind of slightly further back sort of inverted right position when Tavernier would run onto the ball, and indeed we would get a goal from that kind of position in due course. But we'll build up to that in a moment. So maybe look at what I've got in my notes here. I've got this big thing of notes. If I can get it over here, so lots to add to the game. So as I say, we started on the front foot. I thought Jeffrey Tav very high, but Barami was being kept quite deep a lot of the time at the beginning. And the game was really high tempo for the first 15 minutes, which I thought was really good. That kind of ties into Dado's comment about the team looking fit. We were high tempo. We were aggressive. We were taking the game to Dundee, which is really good. I want to see that happening more and more games against loads of different oppositions, because I think we should be a fitter team with the quality and the facilities that we have. That's something that we should be able to have over other teams. So it was good to see us doing that. And good to see the team, as I say, looking positive and getting up front. Seeing a few more people coming into the chat. Welcome, guys. Paul, good to see you, and Billy as well. John coming in also with a comment there. No look crossing from Jeff D. Love it. One of the things I love about excuse me. One of the things I love about Jeff D. In particular is his variety of crosses and how quickly he often gets the ball into the box. He's quite he's a quick player in general. He's pacey, but one thing that he does, I think, in particular, that's different from say Barisic, if we consider him the last sort of stuck on left back we had. Barisic was very much more stop, take his time, look where he was doing it, and then cross the ball in, which obviously was very effective for him with his crossing ability. But Hefty likes to get it in quite quickly, whether that's cutting back or like say no look crossing or whatever it might be. And I think that's quite exciting. It has the opportunity to throw defences off if they're maybe not quite set yet, and he's whipping the ball in. And if we can get people obviously on the end of those, I think Hefty will end the season with a good number of assists. Right. So as I say, we were quite high tempo for the first 15 minutes. I thought we were seeing, as I touched on a minute ago, we were seeing a lot of movement in the fullbacks, and Tavernier in particular, moving around a lot into those positions, which often found Sterling dropping into right back to fill in the sort of the space there for Tavernier when he was moving forward. As I say, it seems to be a very deliberate thing that's being done to get Tavernier into those spaces and create. I do wonder if it's to do with not having got maybe the more creative midfielder and that kind of six that we maybe would have wanted. And so they're bringing Tavernier central because he's more technical on the ball. He's got obviously the ability to cross and pass. Although, I mean, it is something that he's done throughout his career, so it's not exactly brand new, but it just feels very deliberate the way we kind of see it. earlier in the build-up play, as opposed to when Tavernier used to come in quite late. Obviously, we'd get a lot of his back post goals that way, but he seems to be coming into the centre and into midfield play much earlier in the kind of build-up, particularly when the build-up's coming from the left as well, which feels more deliberate. I'm not sure whether it's been a thing that it's been discussed, but it is obviously it very much was only happening on that right side as well. If he didn't come in nearly as often, he would tend to hug the line more and push up in that kind of way. It did leave Sterling to be a little bit quiet during the game, I thought. We were discussing it in the chat for the Rangers Journal, and a lot of folk thought he was quite disappointing this evening. I do think for myself personally, a little bit of that was because he was coming out of the game into that right back position. But even then, a few people pointed out when he was on the ball, he wasn't really doing much with it. I thought a couple of times early doors he was falling down quite easily in challenges. I felt, Sterling's a big lad. He's a strong boy. I feel like he should be a little stronger in some of those opportunities and be able to stand up for himself a bit more. I do apologise if I'm coughing a little bit. I seem to have developed literally not coughed all night, and then all of a sudden I want to cough every 5 seconds. So he was a little disappointed, and we do see him coming off in the second half as well. So a little bit there to think about. How much longer are we going to maybe be doing the Sterling experiment in terms of the midfield aspect? Is that where they see him? Is he going to be right back long term? Obviously, we saw Tavernier actually coming off in this game with 10 minutes to go, and it was obviously Casemiro that comes on from in that right back. So that kind of maybe potentially gives a hint that that's obviously where we see him playing. That was where they thought he was going to be. So we'll have a wee look. So we have a wee look at some of your comments here. Paul saying, I think Jeff Day needs to just work more on picking out a player in the box rather than just being a bit picky. Well, that's fine. We demand the high standards at Rangers, so there's nothing wrong with being a bit picky. I'm sure that's something that will develop in his game. Obviously, he's a young lad. I think a combination of that eagerness and maybe in a bit of time in a few years, but maybe we'll see that ease off. Maybe it's just going to be a youthful thing, youthful exuberance. But so I do like it nonetheless. It just gives that little bit more of a bit of excitement to the game, I think, sometimes, to have someone that's so keen to do something with the ball. So often in the past, we've just been kind of a bit meddling and passed it around to the box and things. So it's nice to have someone that's a bit keen to just be like, no, I'm getting the ball in the box here and let's make something happen. John saying there, Sterling is not a midfielder. That's blatantly obvious. I do think more and more people are kind of starting to move to that kind of position. I think he's got attributes to do a job, particularly if it's going to be a more defensive role in terms of being defensive midfield. If he's going to maybe be a bit of an enforcer, he could do that. But I feel like Barron covers a lot of that kind of stuff. Barron's strong in the ball. He's the one that's dropping in between the defenders to pick it up. And I kind of feel like with him and with Barron and Sterling on the park at the same time, I feel like as if their skill sets are maybe a little similar in terms of there's not enough guile from either of them. So although having said that, Barron I think is improving in that matter. So I think you're better off with a Diomande in there who's going to be a bit more attacking, has a little bit more with his passing, as opposed to Sterling, who I think long term will settle into that right back position once Tavernier eventually leaves or retires. So after that kind of 15 minutes of decent play, we obviously get our first goal, which was from the much maligned Cyril Dessers. Gets his goal in 18 minutes. It's you could call it luck, you can call it well taken. I think it could go either way. Again, the ball builds down the left-hand side really well. This time it's actually Barami that gets ahead and up to the edge of the box. He cuts the ball back. It's kind of intercepted and bounces outwards into that kind of inverted right area where Tavernier is kind of exactly where you expect him to be in that kind of scenario. Tavernier takes a shot, hits it really well. It does look like it's probably going to go a bit wide, though. However, as it comes zipping in, Dessers is right in its path just to dink it and or depending on your point of view, it hits him and goes in. But I think he doesn't have to be totally credited with the goal. Dinks it straight into the middle of the net, and there's not really much the goalkeeper could do about it. And we are 1-0 up. They put a nice little sort of period on a positive opening to the game. So the first 15 minutes was really good, and that really kind of set that off and allowed us to continue in that vein. And indeed, not long after, about 2 minutes later, there's a carbon copy of that goal where we come down the left, the ball gets cut back again. Tavernier's in that exact same position. Again, he shapes up for the shot, but this time kind of balloons it over the top of the goal. So he should be doing a little bit better there, hopefully getting that chance on target. Dundee started to come into it a little bit more after that. They kind of sort of, I think, eased back a little bit and started to solidify themselves. They got a decent chance just before the 25th minute. They brought out a good save from Butland with his feet. And Lawrence gets a good chance that he skies as well. Kind of gets the ball. Just Dessers wins it in what is ultimately judged to be an offside position. The ball comes to Lawrence, who cuts around the player and shapes to aim the top corner, but he puts it way above. I do think he should probably score or at least get that chance on target. As I say, ultimately it doesn't really matter because it was judged offside, but just for the sake of hitting the net and getting that bit of confidence, I do think I would like to see him doing that. But overall, Lawrence was decent again today. He seems to, as someone in our chat said today, he seems to have found a new lease of life in the last couple of weeks, and particularly since the international break, which is only a good thing. If he's going to find himself into some form, then that's fine. Obviously, he's got a goal or two, and if he can continue to play well, then that gives us more options and just more confidence in a player that I think a lot of us didn't think was going to do much for us, but. I think he's got a run in the team, which is another thing I think it's worth talking about. Lawrence is another one that's had a bit of his injury worries, so he's not always had really long runs in the team where he's playing, the full 90 minutes. Whereas this season, from the start in the pre-season games as well, he was playing a lot and starting and in one position as well. So this maybe benefited him and allowed him to settle into it and improve. I do ultimately want to see Barami in that position long term, but even so, if Lawrence can be playing well, maybe he's another option for the left, or indeed just as a good backup and someone we can have confidence in to be a backup. I think would work as well. It allows Clement to rotate also, which is a good sign. As obviously, ideally, if we're going to be in all competitions, that is something that we will need to do with our smaller squad. I'll take a quick look into the comments here again. I'll need to, as I'm doing all the talking, I don't get the chance to just look at them while someone else is talking. So I will just pause a moment and have a little look at what you guys are saying. Let's see. I think so. Paul, you're adding into the Sterling debate. The way things are going with Sterling, I can see him being sold next season. That is a possibility. Sterling's obviously been with us a couple of years now. So he is someone that could potentially start to become an asset that we consider moving on. Obviously, he did come in for a low price, so we've got the opportunity to potentially make money on him. I do think he's performed well enough that we can make money off him. He doesn't necessarily need to be one of the 20 million signings. Maybe he's more one that we make a couple of million, 3 or 4 million on rather than a larger one, which again is fine. Most of your transfers are going to be in that kind of range anyway. And that's ultimately what we want, is for every transfer that we make to be profitable come the end. So that could be something that happens. I think it'll depend on how things go this season and how things pan out for next year in terms of Tavernier as well. Obviously, as I say, I'm pretty confident that Tavernier will either leave or retire at the end of this season. He'll have kind of got his round 10 by that point. So I feel like that'll be the year that he goes. And so that opens up that right-hand space. Obviously, Casemiro alone, so we'll see how he does as to whether that option is taken up to keep him. So it's possible that he gets a new lease of life next year as a right-back, and we see him get to try and solidify that. But yeah, I think a lot could depend on how this goes this year, I think. for him, because he's had a couple of decent years, and obviously some periods of excelling, but has kind of settled down a little bit since then. Yeah, there's a good point by Paul there. There was a potential penalty in the first half. I think it was about halfway through the first half there. Have I got it written down? I'm sure I will somewhere. Yeah, so Dessers is in the box, and I think it's the same guy that gives away the penalty in the second half, Silla, who was obviously Dessers' marker, and he's just got his arms wrapped around him. He's giving him a proper hug, and so I definitely think we could have got a penalty for that one. Dessers definitely thought he should have had a penalty for it. I think the only thing that saves the excuse me, I think the only thing that saves the Dundee defender is the fact that he's kind of very, very stationary. Although he does have his arms wrapped around Dessers, the defender doesn't move in the slightest, and Dessers obviously making all of the motion. And so I think what saves them is that they decide that Dessers potentially backing into him, and it's and that the defender's not quite done enough. Had he motioned himself with Dessers or against Dessers, more in a more kind of obvious way, I think that would probably have been given. But I think either way probably should be a penalty nonetheless. But it's not given. It's not reviewed by VAR, so they obviously didn't see enough. As I say, I kind of feel like that's what they must have been thinking. They didn't see enough from the defender himself in order to give anything. Okay, let's see what else we got here. A couple of comments about Tav. So John needs to start ahead of Tav and then get a run if he can stay fit enough. That's another thing about Sterling as well. Obviously, there has been the concerns more recently about his sturdiness. Can he keep himself fit for extended periods of time? That's another thing that we'll see this season that I think will factor into it. If he has another season where he's kind of has knocks now and again, I think that would, for me, push it more towards us potentially selling him if he can't stay fit enough to be a regular player at the end of the day. True Blue brings up another point regarding Tav about managing his minutes. I think that's been a big thing that people have been grasping onto. And Clement did make the point at the start of the season. It's something that I agreed with, even as a Tav fan, that his minutes should be managed this year. The last two seasons, Tav started fine, but built into it, then played well for the majority of the year until the last kind of quarter of the season, at which point he seemed to just run out of steam. And that was especially the case last year, where he just totally, I feel like, just ran out of steam and struggled. And whether that was, whether he'd gotten the knock or was just due to having played so much. And I think probably the latter. Again, this is someone that's played the last 9 seasons, never less than 44 games, and playing those games 90 minutes under a lot of pressure, under a lot of stress. So, that's going to wear a player down. And thus far, obviously, he's continued to play all of every game until now. So we did see him come off. And I wonder if that is a part of, because Clement has touched on the fact that he hasn't made some subs, like Danilo didn't come on in some early games because he hadn't wrapped the match up. And so he didn't feel like he was able to do that. I wonder if it's the same with Tavernier. We haven't wrapped up the games, and so he doesn't feel like he can take them off. Whereas tonight, again, by kind of this 60, 70 minutes, we'd had the game out of sight. We were 3-0 up. We were comfortable. Dundee didn't look like they were going to make any big turnarounds. And so I feel like he felt like he could make changes, and we saw those changes happen. And that's one, obviously, that was one of those with Tav coming off. So he gets a bit of a rest there, and we get to see, obviously, the new lad come in for a few minutes. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, so just finishing off the first half then. Dundee did get another chance just before the half-hour mark. Broke straight through the middle, which is something we have seen on occasion. Ross County managed that as well, obviously, in the Celtic game. So I think that is something we maybe need to keep an eye on. Balls coming through the centre and splitting the centre backs. Dundee did that, but Butland was out very early. I had a really strong tackle to save that one, so that was good goalkeeping from Butland. Butland, another one, I think, picked up tonight and showed more of his better form than he has done recently. Just before, or just around about 35, Dessers has a chance. He kind of hits straight at the goalkeeper. I think he should score. There was a good bit of interchange. Barami gets the ball, manages to find Dessers with a nice pass. Dessers manages to turn the player, but again, he just kind of hits it straight at the goalkeeper. It's one of those ones that if he just kind of takes a breath, takes a second, aims for either corner, he probably scores that, and I think he should score that as well. That for me goes down as a chance that should have been a goal. And then Dessers again, just before half-time, gets another chance, a decent save from the goalkeeper. Doesn't get the best connection after fighting free from a defender, but it's a good sort of cross ball in from the right. And he's kind of jostling with the defender a little bit, wins that jostle, and then sort of a semi-acrobatic attempt to get at the ball. But the keeper kind of bounces up, and the keeper manages to get his hand to it, makes a decent save. So again, Dessers could make better contact with that one, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that chance because he was wrestling with the defender. On another day, that maybe bounces and goes in, but as I say, decent save for him. And that pretty much took us up to half time. My notes at half time say decent half. We were running the left hand side, a lot of chances coming, as I say, from that kind of classic Rangers style that we've played in the last sort of few years with the left side cutting back to right. And just that we looked a lot more confident, we looked a lot more exciting, we looked a lot more like ourselves than I think we have in a wee while. So I want to put that down to being back at Ibrox, being back in the atmosphere, being back with the fans, and having that noise behind them, and having something to kind of push them on as a positive. So I think hopefully positives to take from that moving further. And they did talk about it on the after match commentary, the potential to for this to be a kick on for our season, and I would like to think that could be the case. It is truly turning into a season of change. We've got the chairman stepping down. Obviously, we've got a new manager in place. We're going to have a new CEO. We're going to have a new director of football, head of academy. If these things get sorted out soon, which hopefully they will. So it really is becoming a big season of change, and hopefully this can be a kickstarter to push us forward with that a little bit now with us back home. Okay, let's come back to comments again. Have a wee look what you guys are saying now. VAR took a day off. It really did. It didn't seem like VAR didn't have much to do. And when it felt like it didn't seem to really want to do it. They did have a couple of offside checks, but that was about it for the day, so they weren't particularly active. John saying Tam should never have started. I think that could have been an option. You could have had the chance to rest him. I just don't think that Clement will do that unless there's an absolute need to, like if of all other, unless there's a severe injury drought or something, and you want to protect him for a bigger game later on. I think that's probably unlikely. I think it's more likely we'll see him start games and come off than not start them. But we'll see how that pans out as we go forward. Paul there, Barami put in some nice balls, but we'd still like to see him playing as a 10. I totally agree with you there. I think the main problem with him being on the left is what I think we saw in the first half, is that I think he'll potentially be stunted slightly because of Fiefty being such an attacking fullback, and you'll potentially not get the best out of Barami if he's playing half of his game with having to have those defensive duties in mind. So I'd like to see him in the centre, have the winger who's more used to doing that kind of thing there. But I mean, obviously it gives us an option for these. John, why is Kelly not starting these games? I think that's a managerial choice. At the end of the day, some like to do the second keeper getting cup games, some don't. I'm kind of on the fence with it. I don't really mind either way. The goalkeeper is such a unique position. I do see the value in just keeping that position solid. Again, particularly right now, while I feel like we're still building the team and still building relationships, I think it is important for them to be a bit more consistent with the selection. But had he made more changes, so if he hadn't played, both the starting centre backs, then it would make more sense for me to then give Kelly the opportunity then, so that he's getting the minutes and getting a little bit of game time in his legs. Obviously, should the need for him to play due to injuries or whatever come up, but we'll see if that's an ongoing thing, or as I say, it might just be because I think we need to be playing our first team right now to get them gelled. Okay, I've seen a couple of comments about Raskin. I think it might be Paul as well. You made the earlier one I saw about should have haven't started. I think Raskin should have played. We know what Dio offers, and Raskin needs minutes. He does. Again, for me, that maybe comes down to is he playing the players he views as the starters at the moment, in order to build the team faster, and obviously with European games starting up now, it's important to maybe focus on getting the team ready for that challenge, because that is going to be a challenge, and maybe get Raskin in when he can, with some minutes going. But I do want to see him get more minutes. The more options we have for the midfield, the better. We saw, I think we kind of saw a little bit today about just before he came off, Desser's looking at the bench and like seeing Nigamani there, and when you've got players coming in behind you that could come on, that's going to spur you forward and make you want to perform. I feel a little bit sorry for Dessus, actually. I think that's the third or fourth time he's come off just after scoring a second. So he's getting robbed of the opportunity for hat tricks, but never mind. Second half, we did make a change. So Sterling came off and Diomande came on. I think that was perfectly justified. Sterling had been really quiet, hadn't really done much, lost the ball a few times. So I think that was a good start. And the second half starts really well. Within a few minutes, we get a penalty at 49 minutes. A very similar incident to the first one that we talked about. Silla is basically hugging Dessers, but this time he's kind of hugging and all over him and kind of pulls Dessers down to the ground. Stonewall penalty. I don't think there can be much of a complaint from a Dundee side from that one. The player gets a yellow card. And then, of course, the inevitable happens. I did actually for a wee second wonder if we would potentially maybe see anyone else taking the penalty, but of course we saw what we are used to seeing these days, which was the captain Tavernier stepping up and taking the penalty and dispatching it as he usually does. So that's good. That's good to see Tav getting on the goals again. It's first goal for the season. I'm not sure if whether his kick from earlier will be counted as an assist or not, because he was quite clearly trying to take a shot. So we'll see if that counts as another assist. But Tav, I thought, played really well today. I personally thought he was better than he was against Dundee United. A lot of people seemed quite happy with him at Dundee United. I actually was the opposite. Although it was a quiet night defensively for him against Dundee, and he was kind of solid in that way, he wasn't really involved in our build-up play as much as he usually is in that game. Whereas in this game, he was involved a lot in a lot of the build-up match and build-up play, and obviously created a few chances and had a few chances of his own. So it's good to see him getting on the score sheet and sort of business as usual was returning in that way. We got another chance just after the 50th minute. Cherney crossed in, and Tav again being very attacking is right on the penalty spot basically again. In fact, he's actually right on the 6-yard box, I think, and is literally centimetres away from poking it into the net, but it just slips past him. He started that second half again very high, moving very central a lot of the time. After 53 minutes, Dundee have a corner that leads to a big chance for them. Butland kind of manages to scramble it away. If you're a Dundee supporter, I think you're probably sick that you've not scored that one. They had two really good chances that on another day they could have scored and made the game a bit more uncomfortable for us. So still a couple of defensive things for us to keep an eye on. They got a couple of good crosses into this in between our centre backs, which was a little bit of a worry. And their fullback, or their sorry, not their fullback, their left winger, is it Tiffany? I think his name is. Not 100% sure. He's a decent player, and he gave Tavernier a little bit of trouble at times. He's a pacey player, so he was able to get just that little yard on Tavernier occasionally in order to get crosses in. It wasn't any particularly terrible. Some players are obviously just good at that kind of thing. But he did cause a little bit of trouble, and he was probably one of their most creative players on the night. Moving into the sort of coming towards the 60th minute, we came in from the right, got a good shot from the edge of the box from Dessers, but sorry, not from Dessers, from Cherney. It was a little bit weak and a bit central, so the goalkeeper makes an easy save. Tavernier drove into the box to create a cross for Dessers. The ball kind of gets past Dessers and arrives at Barami, who has a decent shot, but the keeper has a good save for that one, so I think that was just unfortunate. We continue to play really well, good passing play. We had a moment where we had a bit of pressure from the Dundee attacking players in our defence. We play it around really comfortably, really confidently, and get the ball out from defence, which was really nice to see. Again, seeing the players have a bit of confidence, I think, was a big thing tonight, whereas other times that's not been the case. And they played that out, and that led to a nice little sort of, not leisurely, but a nice passing movement that kind of just moved the ball, recycled, moved it where it needed to be, and eventually led to us getting a good chance where Cherney gets a shot off. And I think it took a slight deflection that actually moves the ball closer to the goalkeeper, but he makes a decent save. Continues from there. Dundee get another chance just after the 60th minute. Another header put over. Probably should have done better there. But luckily for us, he did not. Diomande has a decent shot from the edge of the box, but has an easy save. And then we come to the second of our two goals. Our second goal from Cyril Dessers at the 66th minute. And Barami gets the ball on the left-hand side. Beautiful cross in front of the defenders, straight into the centre where Dessers is running. And Dessers really takes it really well, knocks the ball straight into the goal. Really good goal, the type of thing I think we'll hopefully see from Barami a lot, particularly if he plays on that side. And this was one where Dessers doesn't overthink it, doesn't try and do anything special, just connects nicely with the ball and knocks it in there. So that's a really good goal. And obviously that makes it 3-0 by that point. I think the game is done. And we start to see the team changing and subs being made. I'll take this juncture to have another wee look at the comments here. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so Paul is asking, Doug, looking ahead at the Malmo game, who plays left back? Will it be Sterling or Fraser? That's an interesting question, actually. I thought we would see Fraser at some point today in advance of that game. I kind of feel like, given past decisions, it'll potentially be Sterling because he's been playing. But the only game time that Fraser's had thus far was coming on at the was it Ross County he came on at, and he didn't play left back. He played right wing because, of course. So he's not had a lot of minutes. I'd be perfectly happy with him playing. I think Fraser could probably manage that match. He's a decent young player, but yeah, I feel like it will probably be Sterling just because he's got the minutes. Probably he's a high quality player overall probably at this time. So I would probably guess Sterling would be my thought with that. Let's see, have we got anything else? True Blue saying Tav was decent today. I totally agree. I thought he was a lot more like his classic self, up and down the pitch a lot, getting involved in a lot of the play. Had a couple of chances. He could have scored himself in addition to his penalty goal. Obviously a potential assist, depending on how they count it. and could have had other assists as well, had some other crosses gone the right way. So we'll need to see what happens. You follow that up with need to move him up the pack and move Sterling back. It's interesting. I kind of was thinking about this during the game, in particular that first half where we saw it happening a lot and Tavernier moving into the centre. And I did kind of wonder, would it make more sense just to shift them around and have Tavernier playing as more of maybe the six kind of role, have him being the one to collect the ball and distribute, and then push forward, and kind of make those more late runs, and then settle Sterling into that right back and give him a chance to play there. I think the main benefit we maybe get from not doing that from the get-go is that by having the players moving and fluid, you're forcing the opposition to pay more attention to what's going on, and you're potentially pulling players out of position. So if you've got someone who's potentially marking Sterling or keeping an eye on Sterling where he's moving in terms of attacking, and they see Sterling maybe moving outwards and they pull out to cover that, and then Tavernier moves forward and into the space created, you potentially open up things there. And then, obviously Tav pushing forward can potentially become an extra man. But I don't think that really happened in terms of becoming an extra man, because it was quite a set motion, quite a settled thing. They would kind of move and then just be sat and in those positions for a few minutes of the game. So he just kind of became one of the midfielders. So it was more about, I think, benefiting from Tavernier's skill set over Sterling's skill set. So we'll see. To me, it's an obvious thing. I think someone said in the comments earlier, I forget who it was. I'm not sure if it was the comments here or I've got things popping up on my phone from our group chat as well. But someone talked about wanting to see styles of play and things from the manager, and this is definitely one of them. So it's good to see that, and I suppose we'll see what happens, how that develops. I don't think we're going to see ultimately Tav moving positions in that way. If it was going to happen, I think it would have happened by now. The start of the season would have been the best time to do it, because you could have trained it in the off season and come in with that. So I think if we were going to see it, it'd probably have been done already. But we'll see. Paul, the Dessers' second goal reminded me of the goal Moll scores against them. First time finish was class. It was a very good finish. Moll's obviously another great striker. If we can go on and emulate Moll's, then that would be to tell a lie, that wouldn't be good at all. Let's not hope for that. If we can emulate early Moll's, then yes, that would be great. I think at the end of the day, that's Dessers on 7 goals this season now. I think the arguments against him are becoming smaller. Yes, there's still the argument that he's not quite got it in terms of the overall play, and I think that's true. You could see the crowd immediately when Igaman came on and showed a bit of strength on the ball in a kind of, I think, a Morelos-esque kind of a way. The crowd picked up on that immediately. I do think there are things that Dessers can do better, and that maybe other players can offer more. But I think the big thing is, if you have Dessers doing what he's doing and keeping scoring every other game, and then you have someone like Emma who can come on or start games and offer that something different, then that's a benefit to have, two striking options. Obviously, ideally, the best case scenario is to have all your skills in one player. But if you can't, then having 2 players with the skills across the board, then that's good. But obviously, we'll see if Igaman can add goals to his sort of impressive build-up play and hold-up play that we've seen so far. And he did come close tonight. I think it was around about 84 minutes. He had a good chance, McCausland, with a cut back, and he drags it just wide. So he could have got on the score sheet today. So that could have been one for him. And if he does add goals to his game, then he will get, I think, the opportunity to challenge Dessers for that position. True Blue. So exactly, Tav seems to be floating about midfields and Mustard's coming back to cover. I mean, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. It's really obvious when you see it. Sterling drops back and Tav's in that position. So, I think it's good that we can see obvious tactical things, because that's the kind of thing I think, while we're still building, while we're still developing, we need to see that they've got plans in place, that there's obvious tactical things that are happening and importantly working, which they do seem to be as well. So we want to see that kind of thing happening. Okay, so just to finish off the match then, after the goal, as I say, I think you saw what Clermont has been wanting. We finish off the game by getting the third goal, and then you start to see... 2 seconds. I'm one of these people that any of your headphones just do not like me. They don't want to stay where they want to be, but hey-ho. What's I saying? Yeah, after we get that goal, he's able to make some changes, and he does. 67th minute, we see Cherney and Dessers come off for McCausland and Igaman, and then shortly after that, Barami comes off for Cortez. We do see a little bit of slackness from Tav just after he gives the ball away, and Dundee again with a chance, but thankfully Butland makes a good save. Again, if you're a Dundee fan, that has to be a goal for their point of view, I think. They did have a couple of chances that they could have scored and made the game more difficult for us. But straight after that, we're piling up to shoot. A couple of players getting on the ball, squaring, then passing. Eventually, Diomandi takes a shot that deflects over. We then get the substitute for Tavernier, and Casavirjo comes on. So as I say, good to see him making his debut. Doesn't do a huge amount during the 10 minutes he's on, but that's fine. The game was starting to wind down at that point. And then the last chance I've got noted is Igaman's chance at the 84th minute. Same with the McCausland cutback. But it was good to see the players come on. I thought McCausland looked particularly bright when he came on. He got a couple of chances, made a few chances. He was positive with the ball, pushing forward. So, I think he's keeping up the pressure on the players ahead of him, which is exactly what we want from the players behind him. And Igaman, I thought, was good. He was quite strong in the ball, had a few chances. Cortez and Casavirjo, as I said, I don't think that does as much, but we're fine. So good for these guys to get minutes and get time on the ball. So as we move into the next one, wardrobe malfunction, exactly the probably the best, the happiest wardrobe malfunction I think I can have. Luckily, there's not much that can go wrong apart from my headphones, so that's fine. Paul agreeing with me there. McCausland looking bright, still progressing. I think that's good. Hello, Grace. Welcome to the show. Nice to see you. Thank you for commenting. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of really it. As I say, it was a really good night. I think, for me, we got everything from that game that we wanted. We got a good performance on our return to Ibrox. There was a good atmosphere. The fans were able to enjoy the game because the team played well. We were positive. We were aggressive. We were on the front foot from the start of the game. And this time we didn't let up on it as well. We got our reward when we got the goal, and we kept going. We maybe could have pushed a little bit harder at times, but given we've got the European game coming up, and I think it was obvious, I think, from quite early on that we were going to control the match. I think that's okay. Obviously, we go on to get the further goals. And then having put the game to bed early for a change, we were able to then make changes and get our substitutes on, get players who needed some minutes to play some minutes. So really, it kind of had everything that we wanted. I think we could have maybe got a couple more goals, and a few other chances had gone our way. One or two moments where maybe the defending could have been a little bit tighter. But apart from that, I think, as I say, it was pretty much as good as it could have been. In terms of players, if you want to put your man of the match in the comments for me, let me see who you thought your man of the match was. I'll work towards on mine. In terms of the players, I don't think anyone apart from maybe Sterling. Everyone got pass marks. Sterling didn't play badly. He was just a bit anonymous. And as I say, I think subbing him off at half time was the right decision. So apart from him, though, everyone else I thought played well. Obviously, the players that came on all put a shift in. McCausland, in particular, Eggman also again looked bright, so they were good. But I think, I mean, when it comes to man of the match, Dessers is the obvious choice for the 2 goals, and I believe he got the man of the match from the broadcaster at the end. I think I just caught him being given the man of the match by the presenter. So I think he's an early shout. But I have to say, my man of the match would potentially be Shefty. I thought he was just really bright, really exciting from the start. He kind of has that little bit of Brazilian flair that folk like from that type of player. You know, he's young, he's enthusiastic, he gets on the ball, he wants to play. You know, those defensive frailties that we saw pre-season seem to have kind of settled a little bit. We'll maybe see when he's up against higher quality opposition that potentially comes back. He'll obviously meet Man United again, potentially. So we'll see how that goes. But I just think he looks a really exciting player, and I think he's either going to have he's hopefully going to have a few solid years with us, and then potentially we'll be able to sell him on for a good amount of money. So I'm going to give him my man of the match tonight, just because, as I say, I thought he was really good from start to finish. I really enjoyed watching him play. Okay, that's how we look, see what you guys are saying. So, Paul, you've got Suter and Proper had a good game. Barn full of energy. Lawrence looked good, but Dessers for me, I think that's a perfectly good shout. Lawrence did look very good. It's good to see him coming into a game. You know, he's going to force the manager to have to make decisions if he keeps playing well. And as I said earlier on, it's just good to have a player performing well, because that always will add to the squad options. Barn, you know, he just had another game of the games he's been having. He's been playing strong matches. He's really settled into the team, and he's making that position his own. He's doing the Lundstrom thing. He's dropping back, getting the ball, passing it, moving it forward. He's good in the tackle. Again, you know, he's also young, enthusiastic. So, you know, long may that continue. I hope to see him continue to build. And again, I think it would be really good if we are able to get someone in at some point that's maybe got a little bit more experience in that midfield. To help bring the young guys forward and help them develop. You know, he's been a really good purchase, considering, you know, we're likely not going to be paying a huge amount of money for him, whatever the compensation ends up being. So that was good. Suter and Proper, I thought were fine. There were a couple of moments where I thought they were caught. One chance in particular with a cross that settled right in between the two of them. They should have been communicating better there. That should have been a goal for Dundee, really, but luckily the boy heads it over. But yeah, I thought they were pretty decent throughout the game. Looked confident on the ball, passed it really well between themselves, particularly under a few moments of pressure as well. They passed it between themselves quite nicely. So good to see that, you know, their relationship develop. If they're going to be the first choice too, then that's what we want. We want to see them continuing to develop their play, and continue to obviously hopefully form a decent partnership, because in defence, it's as important as to have good players. It's also important for them within themselves to have a good relationship. A really strong centre-back partnership, I think, can add an extra point or two to two players that are less maybe technically skillful, if they've got really strong communication and ability to work together. So a combination of those things are going to help. Okay, let's have a look. Calling about Hadji. I'll take any excuse to talk about Hadji. Truebly asked, will Gillingham tell Clement to play Hadji? I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I still feel like there's just a win to be made here. If, you know, Hadji himself seemed to imply through his own social media posts that he was willing to talk about sorting the situation, and in my mind, that means talking about this supposed contract clause that he has. It just feels like there's an easy win to be made where they can just say, look, you know, we either cut the clause somehow and just give him slightly more, but not as much as he's currently due to get, or maybe have some kind of thing and go, well, you know, we take it out, and if you do certain good things, then you can earn it back. I think the problem is probably if Clement is telling the board he's not going to use him and he doesn't want him, then the board are maybe just sitting there going, well, there's no point in negotiating with him to get him into a squad if the manager's never going to play him. And so they're maybe just saying, we're just going to have to just face the situation and try and offload him. But, I think he adds to the team. He could add to the team, and he would give us more options. More options are always good. We do have quite a small squad now. And obviously, he's an international level player. He should be training with the first team. He should at least be given the option. Even if the manager doesn't think you're up to the job, you should still have the option to try and train your way into the team. Or indeed, what happens if we do get a spate of injuries? Are they going to have to turn to him, tail in their legs, and be like, "Oh well, we need you to play now"? It's just a bit of a strange one, to be honest. Hopefully it gets better, but unfortunately, I kind of feel like it might be one that kind of just drags on as it is. But we shall see. Okay, I think I've waffled on long enough. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in and listened to just my voice for what I've now realised is coming on 55 minutes. I only planned to be on for about half an hour, but that's typical for me. Once I get going, I cannot stop. But I suppose that's the thing with Rangers. There's always plenty to talk about, and I'm always happy to talk about Rangers. It's great to see all you guys in the comments. Thank you for joining in and spending this hour with just myself. I promise there will be more podders on next week for the regular shows. We will be back, obviously, during the week, across the weekdays with all your favourite stuff. There'll be the Q&A at some point. There'll be a bit more delving into the match tomorrow, I imagine. Not tomorrow, sorry, on Monday, I imagine. And we'll have more, obviously, exciting content for you to listen to. So thank you guys for putting your comments in and giving me some stuff to chat about with you and for involving. I want to say a big thank you from myself as well. We hit 2,000 subs at the end of the week there, which is a huge deal for us. We've been really pushing to try and get to that point. So thank you to everyone who has subscribed. Thank you to all the members. Thank you to everyone that comments. We're really happy that you're hopefully enjoying the content and having subbed in those numbers, and we hope to keep pushing on to do that. If you're not a subscriber, then we do post we do post content almost every day, all about Rangers. So if that's your bag, then please do hit that subscribe button. Helps out the channel immensely. And if you can like the videos when you see them, that also gives us a help of a boost. It's all about that algorithm and getting our content in front of people's eyes so that they get the chance to hopefully see what we've got to offer. Okay, so a great day for us, a good win. Pushing on now to Malmo. Hopefully we can do good things. Thank you for tuning in. My name's been Doug. And just a reminder for anyone who doesn't already in the know, that every night is Rangers Journal night. Thank you. Good night. Enjoy your weekend.